The dynamic nature of news, it's so much more than just the headlines you skim, right?
Absolutely. It's like this constant pulse, reflecting deeper currents, things shaping our world.
Exactly. And it influences decisions, tells these crucial stories about, well, everything, humanity, tech, power dynamics. Every single day gives us this fresh chance to really understand the nuts and bolts of a nation or community.
Or even just one single moment that catches everyone's eye.
Precisely. Welcome, everyone, to The Deep Dive, your shortcut to genuinely being well-informed. We take all that information, you gather articles, research, maybe your own notes, and we really try to meticulously extract those essential nuggets of knowledge.
Those key insights.
Yeah, the mission is basically to cut through the noise, give you those aha moments, make sure you grasp the real significance of what's happening.
And hopefully have a little fun along the way.
Just enough to keep you hooked.
Indeed. So today we're setting off on, well, a pretty fascinating journey. A deep dive into the top headlines coming out of India for Monday, July 28th, 2025.
And these aren't just random events, are they?
No, not at all. Think of them more like windows. Vital windows into the multifaceted challenges, the remarkable triumphs, and the ongoing shifts in a nation that's always in motion, often quite rapid motion.
That's right. And we've got quite a stack of insights ready to unpack for you today. We're going from the cricket pitch, where things got pretty heated over sportsmanship,
Right.
to ancient archaeological digs that are, literally rewriting historical narratives, centuries of them.
Huge implications there.
Then we'll get into complex legal frameworks trying to catch up with cutting-edge tech, like DNA data. We'll explore some contentious international trade disputes.
The UK liquor thing, yeah.
Exactly. And even dissect the intricate dance of domestic politics where, historical grievances are meeting very contemporary ambitions. Our goal here is really to go beyond just the surface. We want to help you understand not just what happened, but why it actually matters, why it's significant, and what it could mean for the bigger picture, for India and its place in the world.
Yeah, we'll be trying to connect the dots between these things that might seem separate at first glance, exploring the broader implications. The goal is that by the end of this deep dive, you'll have a really comprehensive and nuanced understanding of today's key events in India.
Okay, let's do it. Let's unpack this together.
The spirit of cricket under scrutiny, Ben Stokes controversy.
All right, first up, we head straight to the cricket pitch.
Mhm.
An unexpected moment, definitely highly charged, has sparked this significant, I'd even say fiery, debate about the very essence of sportsmanship. England captain Ben Stokes is facing quite a bit of backlash for a controversial act during the fourth test against India.
Yeah.
And the conversation has really spilled way beyond the boundary rope.
Yeah, and the context here is absolutely key to understanding the reaction. So you had Indian batters Ravindra Jadeja and Washington Sundar. Both were closing in on individual centuries, major career milestones.
Big moments for them.
Huge. And crucially, India already had this massive 114-run lead. A loss for them was basically impossible. The result was pretty much settled. Despite this clear situation, during the final drinks break, Stokes makes this gesture, prematurely offers a handshake, basically proposing an immediate draw.
Which many saw as trying to stop them getting their hundreds.
That was certainly the interpretation by many, yeah. An attempt to deny them those personal milestones.
And India, well, they refused.
Yeah.
Stood their ground, right?
Yeah.
They were absolutely determined to let their players reach those hundreds, those career moments.
Totally. That refusal, that clear statement of intent, well, it prompted England to just keep bowling until both Jadeja and Sundar actually got their centuries.
So it became this sort of standoff, captain's tactics versus a team wanting individual glory for its players.
Exactly. And tensions, well, predictably, they definitely heightened on the field right then.
Yep.
What really stood out was you could hear English players expressing frustration quite openly.
Really? On the stump mics.
Yeah, caught on the stump microphones. You could hear their exasperation, this underlying discontent. And then Stokes himself made this, well, pretty sarcastic remark about the Indian batters earning their centuries against, quote, part-time bowler Harry Brook.
Ouch. Brook, who was deliberately bowling poorly.
Yeah, intentionally delivering these subpar, almost disdainful deliveries. It felt like a gesture of contempt, a clear signal of annoyance from Stokes.
But Jadeja's response, It was incredible. Pure defiance, wasn't it?
Absolutely brilliant. He just smashes this massive six-off brook, doesn't just reach his century, he, like, emphatically seals it. His 182 ball 100.
And the handshake?
Completely ignored Brooks' attempted handshake, a very clear, very symbolic snub given the earlier tension. Sundar then followed suit, got a 2-off brook, completed his own 100 off 206 balls.
Talk about making a statement under pressure. They really made England bowl it out for them.
They really did. Underscored their determination. And then you had Sunil Gavaskar, the former India captain, a true legend.
What did he say?
He was quick to criticize England's perceived lack of sportsmanship, especially their very visible refusal to applaud Jadeja's milestone. That really grated.
Right, the applause is sort of standard, isn't it?
Generally, yes. He even went so far as to publicly encourage India to just keep batting through the remaining overs, almost like give them a taste of their own medicine, respond to what he saw as deep disrespect for the game and the players.
So how did Stokes explain himself afterwards?
Well, post-match, Stokes tried to defend his position. He cited concern for his fatigued frontline bowlers. You know, they'd been toiling out there for a long time in the heat.
Okay, that's understandable.
He maintained that India had already secured the only feasible result anyway, whether they drew then or played it out, implying the outcome was fixed, further play was pointless.
But that didn't wash with everyone.
Not really. Many in the cricketing world saw the gesture as deeply disrespectful.
Yeah.
Not just to the players' efforts, but to the spirit of cricket itself, you know, fair play, respecting achievements.
He got called shameless, I saw.
Widely deemed shameless, yeah. Drew a lot of scrutiny from commentators, fans. People felt it was a deliberate attempt to undercut those personal achievements.
It really does highlight that clash, doesn't it, between tactics and, I don't know, the unwritten rules?
Absolutely. It's a powerful microcosm of how deeply cultural values, like the huge emphasis on individual milestones and national pride in Indian cricket, can clash with a purely results-driven tactical approach. It shows how even in games with rule books, those unwritten rules, national pride, they often carry more weight. Leads to these very public spats and debates about the gentleman's game.
Keeladi rewriting India's ancient history.
Okay, now for a complete change of pace. Shifting gears dramatically from the cricket pitch drama, we journeyed down to Keeladi. It's a small, unassuming village in Tamil Nadu, but it's emerged as a truly pivotal archaeological site.
Yeah, pivotal is the right word. The discoveries there are igniting really significant political and cultural discussions about the region's historical identity. It's fundamentally changing how many view India's ancient past.
So what's been found? What's the big deal?
Well, the scale and richness are just incredible. Excavations started back in 2014, initially led by the Archaeological Survey of India, then taken over with significant investment by the Tamil Nadu State Department of Archaeology.
Okay.
And from just 4 acres, they've unearthed an astonishing number. More than 15,000 artifacts.
15,000 from 4 acres. That's dense.
Incredibly dense. We're talking burial urns, ancient coins, copper, even Roman coins suggesting trade links, intricately designed beads made of glass and terracotta, sophisticated terracotta pipes. Each piece is like a tangible link to this vibrant past.
And how old are we talking?
They're estimated to be between 2,000 and 2,500 years old. But the earliest finds, they date back to circa 580 BCE.
580 BCE. Wow, that's really early.
It is. And this isn't just, a local find that excites a few archaeologists. This potentially reshapes the established narratives about the very origins of urban civilization in the entire Indian subcontinent.
Yeah.
It suggests a much richer, much earlier urban history in the South than was previously thought possible. This could profoundly impact how India's early history is taught and understood, moving beyond the traditional focus on the Indus Valley.
Right. So what are the most significant finds that point to this advanced society?
Well, they've found elaborate brick structures indicating planned construction and highly sophisticated water systems drainage, perhaps supply, which are hallmarks of advanced urban planning.
Okay.
This offers compelling evidence of a literate urban society. They've even identified distinct zones, habitation areas, industrial activity areas, possibly pottery, textiles, and dedicated burial practices.
So a fully functioning city.
It makes Keeladi the very first well-defined ancient urban settlement discovered in southern India, a groundbreaking revelation that changes our understanding of early Indian cities and where they were located.
And its location is important too, right? Near Madurai.
Exactly. Its proximity to ancient Madurai, a major city during the Sangam period, a significant trading hub, and its location along the fertile Vaigai River, it all reinforces its historical importance.
Paints a picture of a connected ancient South.
A vibrant, interconnected ancient world thriving in the South, robust trade, sophisticated communication networks, complex social structures, all flourishing much earlier than was widely believed.
How has the reaction been locally in Tamil Nadu?
Immense pride and excitement, understandably. You have to remember, for a long time, the dominant historical narrative in India focused heavily on the north, the Indus Valley, the Vedic civilizations.
Right, that's what most people learn about.
Keeladi directly challenges that. It shines this powerful spotlight on an equally ancient, highly sophisticated, culturally rich legacy in the South that, undeniably deserves equal recognition and study. The local response has been overwhelmingly enthusiastic. It feels like a reclaiming, a celebration of their own historical narrative.
But it's also become political. You mentioned a flashpoint.
Yeah, this is where it gets really interesting. Politically, Keeladi's become this significant flashpoint. It symbolizes Tamil Nadu's quest for historical recognition, for autonomy in shaping the national narrative.
How so? What are the arguments?
Critics argue that delays in the excavations, particularly in the early stages, and maybe limited support from central authorities back then, reflect deeper systemic biases, perhaps even hinting at a historical north-south divide in how different regions' pasts are emphasized within the broader Indian historical story.
So who gets to define Indian history? That's the underlying question.
That's a big part of it. Today, Keeladi embodies both this breakthrough in archaeological research, pushing the boundaries of what we know, and a broader movement to decentralize India's historical discourse, to make it more inclusive, more representative.
And it's drawing attention across different fields.
Absolutely. Archaeology, history, cultural studies, even politics. The discoveries are being extensively commemorated in local museums, making the site accessible, educational for the public, while also fueling ongoing scholarly debate. It really makes us think about how historical narratives get constructed, how they get emphasized, and whose stories end up being prioritized in a nation's official past.
The Digital Personal Data Protection Act, the DNA dilemma.
Okay, moving from the deep past right into the cutting edge, and some pretty serious privacy concerns. India's newly enacted Digital Personal Data Protection Act, DPDP Act, is already facing intense scrutiny. And the specific worry, it's about whether it adequately safeguards genetic information. DNA data, which is, a uniquely personal and potentially a very revealing type of data.
Yeah, and the timing makes this particularly relevant. You have the recent bankruptcy of 23andMe, the U.S. genetic testing company.
Right, and their plans to potentially sell off customer DNA data. That caused a huge stir.
Exactly, and that's really intensified these worries globally. It's especially pertinent for India because you're seeing a rapid increase in its own direct-to-consumer genetic testing services popping up.
And they're operating under a legal framework that maybe hasn't caught up.
That's the argument many are making, that the legal framework is outdated, struggling to keep pace with these advanced technologies and their implications.
So what's the specific gap in this new DPDP Act? How does it differ from, say, GDPR in Europe?
Well, the critical difference is this. Unlike the EU's GDPR, which specifically flags genetic data for higher protection, India's DPDP Act does not explicitly designate genetic data as sensitive personal data.
That seems like a major oversight, doesn't it, for data that reveals so much?
It's seen as profoundly significant, yes, because genetic data inherently requires these elevated protections. Think about the potential for harm, for discrimination in jobs, insurance, even social exclusion based on your genes. But what's truly fascinating, and maybe deeply problematic here, is that genetic data isn't just personal in the way your email address is. It's inherently relational.
What do you mean by relational?
It means sharing your DNA potentially reveals a huge amount of highly sensitive information about your biological relatives, often without their consent, maybe even without their knowledge.
Ah, I see. Like health risks, ancestry?
Exactly. Predispositions to health risks, hereditary traits passed down generations, detailed ancestry markers. So if there's a breach of your genetic data, it affects way more than just you. The vulnerability extends across your entire family tree, known or unknown relatives.
So India's definition of personal data under the Act might be too narrow, just linking info to one identifiable person.
That's the critique. That it fails to specifically account for this unique relational nature of DNA. And by doing that, the law risks ignoring significant privacy threats to family members who could be identified through association, shared markers, or cross-referencing data sets.
Is there legal precedent for thinking about DNA data this way?
Yes, there is strong international legal precedent. The European Court of Human Rights ruling in Essen-Marper v. United Kingdom, for instance, explicitly acknowledged these broader implications of genetic data retention beyond just the individual.
Okay, so putting it all together, what does this mean for the average person in India thinking about taking a 23andMe style test? Or maybe they already have. Are their families genuinely at risk?
Well, India's current approach reflects this broader regulatory silence on this specific point. Critics argue it undermines the fundamental constitutional guarantees of privacy and dignity. With more and more consumers engaging in genetic testing, the absence of specific rules for genomic privacy leaves individuals and, crucially, their families vulnerable. Vulnerable to misuse, unauthorized access, breaches of this incredibly sensitive, unchangeable information.
So it highlights a misunderstanding of DNA itself.
It arguably illustrates both a misunderstanding of the unique nature of genetic data and perhaps a failure to align the legal protections with the very real ethical risks involved. As India pushes forward digitally, you're hearing louder calls for urgent reforms. Reforms that treat DNA not just as data points, but as this deeply personal and, as we discussed, inherently communal map of identity, needing protections that reflect its profound implications.
India-UK free trade agreement. A bitter taste for Indian liquor.
All right, from personal data privacy, let's pivot to international trade. India's recent free trade agreement, the FTA with the United Kingdom, it was hailed as a big deal, meant to open doors, boost economic ties.
Supposedly, yeah.
But it's actually sparked significant backlash from India's domestic liquor manufacturers. They're accusing the British market of keeping up discriminatory, non-tariff barriers against their spirits.
Yeah, it seems like some of the doors maybe weren't opened quite as wide as expected.
Right. What's interesting here?
Well, what's intriguing is that, on the surface, the FTA does reduce import duties for British gin and scotch coming into India, which, in theory, should level the playing field somewhat for UK producers there.
Okay.
But Indian producers are arguing very strongly that existing UK regulations continue to restrict access for their brands, effectively creating an unfair advantage for the British and a big hurdle for Indian exports trying to get into the UK market.
So it's a classic case of tariff cuts not necessarily meaning fair access.
Exactly. It's a textbook example of how tariff reductions, while important, don't always translate directly to equitable market access if other barriers, often more subtle ones, are still in place.
So what exactly are these non-tariff barriers the Indian liquor companies are pointing to? What's the specific rule causing the problem?
The main group, the Confederation of Indian Alcoholic Beverage Companies, CIABC, they claim that existing UK and even broader EU standards unfairly exclude Indian-made foreign liquor, or IMFL, especially their growing whiskey sector. There's one key rule. It mandates that for something to be called whiskey, it must be matured for at least 3 years. Now, that benchmark is derived specifically from European aging conditions. Cooler climates, specific humidity levels.
Right, but India's climate is famously different. Much hotter, more humid in most places. How does that affect aging?
Exactly. Indian producers argue, pretty logically, that their warmer climate significantly accelerates maturation. So, if they were forced to age it for 3 years just to meet the UK rule,
They lose a lot to evaporation, the angel's share.
a huge amount.
Yeah.
Far higher losses than in Scotland, for example. But more importantly, they argue it fundamentally alters the flavor profiles of their whiskeys, makes them taste different from what European standards and perhaps consumers expect.
So because of this rule, they can't even call their product whiskey in the UK.
Often, yes. They're legally barred from labeling it whiskey, even if it's made from grain and aged. Instead, they get relegated to being sold as generic Indian spirits.
Which basically sidelines them.
Completely. Sidelines them from mainstream shelves, hits consumer recognition hard, impacts pricing, overall appeal. It's a massive disadvantage.
So a technical definition about aging, which seems sort of neutral, becomes this huge trade barrier, almost like protectionism disguised as quality control.
That's precisely the argument. CIABC's Director General, Anant Iyer, contends these non-tariff barriers just negate the FTA's intent. They obstruct fair market access, undermining the whole point of reciprocal trade.
Did the Indian government miss a trick during the FTA negotiations? Could they have pushed back harder?
Well, critics suggest they might have missed a crucial opportunity to negotiate for true reciprocity, to really push back against these legacy standards. Some even argue these rules have roots in, well, colonial biases that historically favor European methods and definitions. It reflects these broader concerns about ongoing trade imbalances. about the limited power emerging economies sometimes have in shaping global trade norms, often finding themselves having to adapt to rules set by developed nations long ago.
So even with this FTA in place, Indian liquor makers feel disadvantaged in branding distribution.
Profoundly disadvantaged, yes. They're facing systemic limitations that really hinder their competitiveness in a market that, on paper, should be more open to them now. It's an uphill battle.
So what's the takeaway here?
This post-FTA friction really reveals a critical truth about modern trade. Tariff cuts get the headlines, signaling openness. But these non-tariff mechanisms, technical standards, historical traditions, quality control rules, they still profoundly shape the reality of trade. They can act as very effective, often subtle barriers.
Right.
So now, Indian distillers are rallying. They want reforms that explicitly recognize climatic diversity and aging, that ensure genuinely equitable treatment. They're challenging these long-standing barriers to get fair access to the global market. It makes you question if global trade rules truly accommodate diverse geographical realities, or if they inadvertently just perpetuate historical advantages, making trade less free than it sounds.
PM Modi's Chola dynasty tribute history meets modern politics.
Okay, next headline. This one takes us to a really interesting blend of ancient history, cultural celebration, and very contemporary politics. Prime Minister Narendra Modi recently paid this deeply symbolic tribute to the Chola dynasty. This was at the Adi Thiruvathurai festival in Tamil Nadu's Ariyalur district. It's a powerful example of how history gets woven into modern political narratives.
Yeah, it was quite the event. He announced significant plans to install these grand statues of two of the dynasty's most revered emperors, Raja Chola and Rajendra Chola.
Wow, major figures.
Absolutely. And this commemoration, celebrating Rajendra Chola Sirk's birth anniversary, took place at the historic Brihadisvara Temple in Gangaikonda, Cholapuram, which is itself a UNESCO World Heritage Site, a massive testament to Chola architectural genius.
Right.
Modi really emphasized the dynasty's profound and enduring legacy across religion, architecture, military strategy, naval power.
And he dressed for the occasion too, I saw.
Yes, dressed in traditional Tamil attire, reflecting the local culture. He lauded what he called the Cholas' golden era, this incredible period spanning roughly 300 BCE to 1300 CE.
1,000 years.
An astonishing run. He highlighted their huge influence in Shaivism, a major tradition within Hinduism, their groundbreaking temple construction. I mean, some of the most magnificent and enduring temples in India, like Brihadisvara itself, and their formidable naval strength.
They projected power far beyond India, didn't they?
Oh yeah, their influence reached Southeast Asia. It was a major maritime power.
What were the symbolic gestures he made?
Well, recognizing Rajendra Chola's contributions, Modi released a commemorative coin. And then, in a particularly evocative act linking history and spirituality, he symbolically poured Ganga water at the temple.
Why Ganga water?
It directly referenced the Emperor Rajendra Chola's famous, almost legendary expedition over a millennium ago. He marched north, defeated rulers there, and brought waters from the sacred river Ganga south. A feat of engineering, military might, and profound spiritual significance back then.
Okay, that's potent symbolism.
Very. Modi described the planned statues not just as monuments, but as, quote, modern pillars of India's historical consciousness, designed to inspire pride, preserve cultural memory.
So he's making this strong link between Tamil Nadu's living traditions today and this ancient Chola heritage, making the past feel very present and relevant.
Absolutely. And he also used the occasion to emphasize the government's ongoing efforts to recover India's stolen antiquities, which is a subject that really resonates with national pride, this sense of reclaiming lost heritage.
How successful have those efforts been?
Quite successful, actually. Since 2014, they say over 600 artifacts illegally removed from India have been repatriated from various countries, including a significant number, 36, specifically from Tamil Nadu. So that reinforces both national and regional pride.
And he linked it to APJ Abdul Kalam as well.
Yes, he also marked the death anniversary of former President APJ Abdul Kalam, a revered scientist, statesman, also from Tamil Nadu. He called for India's youth to embody both Kalam's vision for a modern, tech-savvy India and the strategic, ambitious legacy of the Chola kings in building a developed nation, blending ancient glory with modern aspirations.
But it wasn't all smooth sailing, was it? You mentioned contemporary politics. There was tension.
No, it wasn't uniformly celebratory. While it was framed as this grand celebration of heritage, it also drew significant political tension. Dozens of Congress Party members in nearby Trichy were actually detained by police
Wow.
for protesting Modi's visit, specifically by waving black flags, which is a traditional sign of protest and dissent in India.
So, celebration and protest side by side.
Exactly. This striking juxtaposition really underscores the complex, often charged political climate around these kinds of symbolic gestures in India. History, culture, contemporary politics, they're deeply intertwined and often contested ground.
So, zooming out, what's the bigger picture here? What was the aim of this tribute, beyond just honoring the Cholas?
Well, Modi's tribute seemed clearly aimed at blending cultural revivalism with contemporary nationalism, strategically placing ancient dynasties like the Cholas, who are particularly revered in the South, right at the heart of India's evolving national identity narrative.
Kind of broadening the historical focus.
Potentially, yeah. It reflects this deliberate effort to engage historical legacy in shaping present-day patriotism, maybe even influencing policy outlook. The idea being that a strong, reinterpreted past can help build a stronger future. It makes you think about how history gets interpreted, selectively emphasized, and used in modern politics to rally support, maybe bridge regional divides, shape a unified national identity, but also how that often provokes strong counter-responses from political rivals.
Ganges Water Sharing Treaty, a river of diplomacy.
Okay, let's move now to a really critical environmental and diplomatic challenge, one that affects hundreds of millions of people. India and Bangladesh are getting ready to renegotiate the 1996 Ganges Water Sharing Treaty.
Yeah, this is a big one.
It governs how the water is allocated during the dry season from the Ganges River, this sacred source of life for huge populations, and it's set to expire in December 2026. That deadline is looming.
It really is. And the significance here is immense. The Ganges is, well, it's far more than just a river. It's a sacred lifeline, an essential resource for hundreds of millions in both countries.
Originates in the Himalayas.
Right. Flows through India as the Ganga, then becomes the Padma in Bangladesh, nourishing one of the world's largest, most densely populated river deltas. Its waters are fundamental for everything: agriculture, irrigation, drinking water, sustaining the entire ecosystem and biodiversity of the region. Countless lives and economies depend on it.
And the timing of this renegotiation seems particularly challenging, doesn't it? With new pressures that weren't maybe as front and center back in '96.
Indeed. The treaty's expiration comes amid rapidly intensifying climate change, which is profoundly impacting river flows, making them more erratic, more unpredictable.
More floods, more droughts.
Exactly. Compounded by mounting population pressures, just more people needing more water and growing geopolitical complexity in the region. Experts widely agree that the existing framework, while groundbreaking for its time, is now pretty outdated. It's just ill-equipped to handle today's complex hydrological realities.
Was there supposed to be a committee working on this already?
Yeah, a joint technical committee was expected to form, possibly as early as 2025, to sort of lay the groundwork for the high-level diplomatic talks. But progress on that front has, unfortunately, been slow, which just adds to the urgency.
How is Bangladesh approaching this? Given they're downstream and perhaps more vulnerable to changes in flow, have they shifted tactics?
Well, one interesting move is Bangladesh's recent accession to the United Nations Water Convention. That signals a strategic pivot. They're looking to use broader global frameworks for equitable water management.
Leveraging international law?
Potentially, yes. It underscores Dhaka's growing emphasis on ensuring fair distribution of shared water resources. And the Ganges really exemplifies these broader challenges of managing rivers that cross borders. India and Bangladesh share something like 54 rivers.
54? Wow.
Yeah, but remarkably, only the Ganges is currently managed under a formal binding agreement. That highlights a pretty significant gap in regional water cooperation, making this Ganges treaty negotiation even more critical as a potential precedent.
And climate change just makes it all the more urgent, you were saying, the monsoon variability.
Absolutely. As the monsoons become more variable, you see more frequent, more severe incidents of devastating flooding, wiping out crops and homes, and then also severe water scarcity, leading to agricultural crises. It creates immense pressure for a modernized pact.
How does the current system manage the flow?
It relies heavily on a dam near the border, the Farakka Barrage, which India controls to regulate flows. But the system lacks robust mechanisms for cooperative adaptation to these evolving environmental risks.
So what will be the key sticking points in the upcoming talks?
Likely things like how to adjust seasonal flows to account for changing rainfall patterns, the need for much stronger ecological protections for the river itself and its delta ecosystem, and better coordination on infrastructure dams, barrages to manage water more efficiently and equitably across the border.
So the stakes are incredibly high for the future of the region. This goes way beyond just water allocation figures.
Massively high. Ultimately, the new treaty has to strike this incredibly delicate balance between national sovereignty, each country's right to manage its resources, and the overarching imperative of environmental sustainability and shared human needs. It has to address both the individual national interests of India and Bangladesh and the fundamental human dependency on that river, which obviously transcends political borders. It's a critical test of regional diplomacy, of environmental foresight, and the outcome will have far-reaching consequences for food security, for economic development in both nations, and for climate resilience across the entire South Asia region. It really forces the question, how can nations effectively balance their sovereign rights over their bit of a shared river with the interconnected needs downstream and the undeniable realities of a changing global climate?
Bihar's electoral rolls, a tidy up for democracy.
All right, let's shift from international rivers back to domestic politics, specifically the mechanics of democracy. The Election Commission of India, the EC, has just announced that the draft electoral roll for the state of Bihar might exclude up to 6.6 million names.
Yeah, that's a huge number.
A massive number of potential voters who could be removed.
Yeah.
It naturally raises big questions about electoral integrity, citizen participation, the whole process.
It is a truly significant figure, yeah. Represents a substantial chunk of the voting population in Bihar, which is one of India's most populous states. Now, the EC says these exclusions are due to various disqualifying factors they identified during this very detailed, rigorous revision process.
What kind of factors?
Things like voters who've permanently moved to other states or union territories, people who failed to submit their enumeration forms by the deadline, which was July 25th, individuals confirmed through official checks to be deceased, or even people who were simply unwilling to register or participate in the update process for whatever reason.
Can you give us a rough breakdown of those 6.6 million? Where did the biggest chunks come from?
Sure. So out of that 6.6 million proposed for exclusion, a sobering 2.2 million names were confirmed as deceased electors. That just highlights the constant challenge of keeping voter rolls current.
Right.
Then a very large group, 3.6 million, had permanently relocated or were simply untraceable at their registered address, often due to internal migration, people moving for work, etc. Additionally, 700,000 individuals were found to be registered in multiple locations. That's a common issue the EC actively tries to fix to prevent any possibility of fraud, ensure one person, one vote.
Makes sense.
And finally, another 100,000 people apparently just missed the submission deadline for their forms. Maybe lack of awareness, maybe logistical issues.
So what happens now for those 6.6 million? Is this list final? Do they get a chance to appeal if they think they've been wrongly excluded?
Good question. The final status gets determined after a detailed scrutiny process, expected to wrap up by August 1st. But, and this is crucial for democratic participation, genuine voters who might have been wrongly listed do have a vital opportunity to get reinstated.
No.
During the claims and objections phase, that's scheduled to run between August 1st and September 1st. So people can come forward, present proof if needed. For instance, those duplicate entries we mentioned. They won't just be deleted everywhere. They'll be resolved by keeping the registration at only one valid, confirmed location.
Okay, so there is a safety net. Despite the huge number, the EC is framing this as a positive thing. More about accuracy than just cutting numbers.
Absolutely. The EC highlighted what they see as robust public participation in this whole exercise. They called it the Special Intensive Revision, or SAR-R process. They noted an impressive 72 million forms were submitted across Bihar, suggesting strong public engagement.
72 million forms, that's huge.
It is, and they emphasized the main goal was ensuring no eligible elector got left out inadvertently. That includes people who might be harder to reach temporary migrants, people in cities, young first-time voters. They also stress the principle of transparent deletion.
What does that mean?
It means every removal has to be accompanied by a speaking order, basically. A written justification stating the clear, specific reason for the exclusion, ensures accountability, allows for challenges.
How do they manage the logistics of reaching so many people across such a big state?
It was a massive undertaking. They used tech quite heavily, sending text messages to something like 57 million registered mobile numbers to get the word out. Form submissions were greatly helped by this army of booth-level agents, or BLAs. They act as the direct link between the EC and communities on the ground. Critical home visits were also conducted to personally confirm voter data, especially in remote areas.
So real groundwork.
Definitely. And the EC actively engaged with representatives from 12 major political parties, getting their input, asking for cooperation in verifying data, and they deployed a huge force, 160,000 BLA statewide to support the whole thing, a significant logistical effort to clean up the rolls.
So wrapping this up, what does this massive exercise mean for Indian democracy, for the integrity of elections, especially looking ahead to Bihar's next vote?
Well, the EC's review process really reflects this determined push for greater accuracy and inclusiveness in the electoral rolls. It's a delicate balancing act, isn't it? Administrative rigor to get clean lists, but also active citizen engagement so no legitimate voter is disenfranchised. As the scrutiny continues over the next month, the primary focus remains squarely on enabling legitimate electors to reclaim their registration if they were wrongly listed. And ultimately, it's about ensuring electoral integrity before Bihar goes to the polls again. It really underscores the ongoing immense challenges of maintaining precise and inclusive voter rolls in a democracy as large, as mobile, as dynamic as India. It's a monumental administrative task.
India-U.S. trade talks. The GM crop standoff.
Okay, next up, back to international relations, specifically trade between two giants, India and the United States. India's really dug its heels in, hasn't it? Their firm stance against importing genetically modified, or GM, crops has become this key obstacle, a real sticking point in their ongoing trade negotiations.
Yeah, it's creating a genuine impasse. And what's fascinating here is the sort of ideological clash at the heart of it.
How so?
Well, you've got persistent pressure from U.S. officials pushing for expanded agricultural access, specifically wanting India to allow imports of GM corn and soy, often citing efficiency, yield benefits, that kind of thing.
Right, the standard arguments for GM.
But New Delhi is holding firm, maintaining that certain issues are fundamentally non-negotiable for them. It's not just about trade barriers in their view. It's rooted in these deeply held principles around things like food sovereignty, national food safety standards, transparency about what citizens eat. These are seen as core values.
And the U.S. Trade Representative, the USTR, they've explicitly called India's GM restrictions non-tariff barriers, haven't they? Basically implying they're unfair protectionism.
They have. But India, as you said, isn't budging, showing really strong resolve on this. And crucially, the Indian authorities have backing from powerful grassroots political groups closely aligned with the ruling party.
Like who?
Organizations like the Bharatiya Kisan Sangh, the BKS, a major farmers union, and the Swadeshi Jagran Manch, or SJM, which is a nationalist economic forum. They're vocal supporters of this stance.
And what's their argument?
They argue vehemently that allowing GM imports, especially without clear, unambiguous labeling, would directly endanger local farming practices, displace traditional crops, and critically undermine health standards for Indian consumers who have concerns about potential long-term effects. The SJM in particular frames this whole debate as part of a much broader challenge to India's economic self-reliance, its ability to feed itself without relying on foreign tech.
So it really goes beyond just trade figures. It's a clash of fundamental ideologies with deeply held beliefs, nationalistic sentiment playing a big role on both sides.
Precisely. This impasse carries significant symbolic weight far beyond just trade logistics. It represents this clash between the principles of globalized commerce, often prioritizing efficiency, market access, and localized autonomy, which emphasizes self-sufficiency, traditional practices, national control over food systems.
And there's a deadline looming. I heard mentions of President Trump.
Yeah, American officials have apparently expressed a strong sense of urgency, alluding to a looming deadline reportedly set by President Donald Trump for concluding some kind of interim trade deal. The implication is pretty clear. If they can't reach consensus on this GM crop issue, it could trigger retaliatory tariffs from the U.S. on a range of Indian exports, which would obviously escalate the trade dispute significantly.
So is this a potential deal breaker for the whole trade agreement, or is there wiggle room?
Well, Indian officials are certainly standing firm right now, indicating this is a non-negotiable point for them, a matter of principle. GM crops have undeniably become a red line, both in terms of policy and that deeply ingrained national sentiment.
It's moved beyond a technical issue.
Completely. It's evolved from what might look like a technical agricultural dispute into this crucial litmus test for India's agricultural integrity, its regulatory sovereignty. As these deadlines approach, the stalemate really reveals these deeper underlying tensions in the U.S.-India trade relationship. It highlights India's attempt to assert its cultural and environmental priorities within a global trade landscape often dominated by Western standards and corporate interests.
And with strong domestic backing for this stance.
Exactly. With powerful domestic constituencies actively backing this resistance, New Delhi's position on GM crops might very well determine whether this high-stakes trade negotiation ends in a successful deal or, unfortunately, a diplomatic deadlock. It makes you wonder, what are the real limits of economic pressure when it clashes with a nation's perceived sovereignty and its deeply held core values, especially over something as fundamental as food?
India's angel investing rarity of a different kind.
Okay, let's turn our attention now to the world of finance and startups in India, a sector that's been buzzing. The angel investing scene there, which had just crossed an impressive $1 billion in commitments, showing a maturing ecosystem,
Yeah, hitting that milestone was a big deal.
is now facing this sharp, concerning decline. And it's apparently due to mounting regulatory pressure. Seems like a classic case of one step forward, maybe two steps back.
It does feel a bit like that. And what's particularly fascinating, maybe ironic, is the specific regulatory change causing this current worry. SEBI, the Securities and Exchange Board of India, the main market regulator.
Right.
They now require individuals who want to invest in early-stage startups through pooled investment funds like angel funds to get official accreditation.
Okay, so an extra layer of bureaucracy, a hurdle that wasn't there before.
Exactly, a significant new hurdle. And the really concerning part is how many people in India actually meet these stringent eligibility criteria for this accreditation right now.
Is it a big pool or quite limited?
Incredibly limited, which is where the problem lies. Currently, estimates suggest only about 650 people in all of India actually meet the specific criteria to qualify.
650, that's tiny.
It's exceptionally small, and that makes the future of these crucial early-stage investments incredibly precarious. It threatens the very pipeline of startup funding.
And this comes right after they got rid of the angel tax, right, which was also hurting startups.
Precisely. This push for accreditation follows the recent abolition of that controversial angel tax. That tax had previously treated startup fundraising almost like income, penalizing early growth, severely hampering the flow of vital funds into the ecosystem for years. Everyone celebrated its removal.
So the relief from removing the angel tax was short-lived. SEBI's new mandate has just created new anxiety.
It seems that way. While getting rid of the tax offered significant relief, this new mandate has almost immediately stirred up significant anxiety, uncertainty in the whole investment community. It really does feel like putting new obstacles right back in the path of innovation.
What are the main criticisms of this accreditation rule?
Well, critics argue pretty forcefully that this feels like regulatory overreach, that it threatens the viability of the entire angel investing ecosystem, just as it was finally getting some momentum after the angel tax mess.
How does it threaten it?
By tightening access to these pooled funding mechanisms so drastically, regulators risk seriously discouraging participation from the affluent individuals who typically make those small, high-risk bets on emerging ventures. Those bets are absolutely crucial for early-stage growth, for experimentation.
And the narrow criteria might limit diversity too.
That's another concern, that the accreditation requirement with its very specific financial thresholds might limit the diversity of the investor base and could ultimately stifle innovation, especially when you compare it to more mature markets like the US or Europe, where there are generally fewer hurdles for accredited or sophisticated investors wanting to back early-stage startups.
So it sounds like maybe a classic case of good intentions protecting investors having potentially negative unintended consequences.
That's exactly how many see it. The broader concern among industry insiders is that India's regulatory architecture, even if it's ostensibly aimed at protecting less sophisticated investors, ensuring compliance, market integrity, might end up inadvertently curbing vital entrepreneurial activity, weakening that essential pipeline of innovation.
And making it harder for founders to get that first crucial check.
Potentially, yes. With so few qualifying investors available under this rule to provide that early capital, startup founders across different sectors could find it increasingly difficult to raise the seed money, the capital that's often essential for turning promising ideas into viable, job-creating businesses, and for India maintaining its growth path in tech.
So what's the outlook for India's startup scene then? Is this a major long-term challenge?
Well, the fear is that SEBI's well-intentioned moves might inadvertently make angel investors rarer than tigers, as one commentator dramatically put it, but maybe accurately given that 650 number. As India strives to grow its tech and startup sectors, become a global innovation hub, striking that right balance between necessary oversight and active encouragement remains absolutely crucial. Sustaining momentum in the early-stage investment landscape depends on it. It really begs the question: how can regulators effectively foster growth and innovation while still ensuring protection and compliance without accidentally stifling the very activity they want to encourage? It's a very delicate tightrope walk.
Manual scavenging. A ban practices persistent shadow.
Okay, our next headline takes us to a deeply troubling, frankly harrowing, social issue. One that continues to plague India despite clear legal prohibitions and widespread condemnation.
Yeah, this is a tough one.
A recent social audit, commissioned by India's own social justice ministry, exposes the persistent and illegal practice of manual scavenging.
Which is the practice of manually cleaning, carrying, disposing of human excreta from dry latrines or sewers.
Exactly. An inhumane practice, a grave violation of human dignity, explicitly banned under a 2013 law, the Prohibition of Employment as Manual Scavengers, and their Rehabilitation Act.
And yet, this audit shows it continues. The audit, conducted in September 2023, looked into 54 tragic sewer-related deaths across 8 states and union territories between 2022 and 2023.
54 deaths in just over a year, in just those areas.
Yeah, and the detail it reveals about the conditions these workers faced is just shocking. Over 90% of those who died had absolutely no proper safety equipment. Most wore only basic gloves and gumboots, totally inadequate for the toxic, hazardous environments inside sewers.
90%.
Even more shockingly, in 49 of those 54 fatal cases, no protective gear was worn at all. And in 27 cases, the workers weren't even informed of the grave, life-threatening risks involved, nor were they given a choice to opt out of such dangerous work. It's just an appalling picture of exploitation and neglect.
It just underscores massive systemic failures, doesn't it? In enforcing the law, in basic public accountability. The law is nearly a decade old, but it seems like it's just not being upheld.
Indeed. The law states manual scavenging is only permissible under very specific, extremely rare conditions, basically, where mechanical cleaning is absolutely infeasible. And even then, there are strict safety guidelines.
But those are being ignored.
Routinely and systematically ignored, according to this audit. Municipalities, who are supposed to mechanize sanitation, often cite the high cost of machines as an excuse, which effectively perpetuates the exploitation of vulnerable communities, often Dalits, who are historically pushed into this work.
And what about support for the families or rehabilitation?
That's another major failing highlighted. Compensation for the families of those who die, and crucial rehabilitation efforts for survivors providing alternative livelihoods, they lag significantly in several regions. Despite clear government directives, Supreme Court orders demanding timely action.
So why does it persist? This inhumane practice, banned by law, condemned by society. Why does it continue to cast this dark shadow?
It's a complex, grim mix of factors. Entrenched poverty, leaving people with literally no other viable options, systemic neglect and often apathy from authorities, and critically weak policy implementation. The laws exist, but they aren't enforced with real vigor.
Even with national campaigns like Swachh Bharat.
Well, the Supreme Court, initiatives like Swachh Bharat Abhiyan, the National Cleanliness Drive, they've issued multiple advisories, calls to eradicate it. But meaningful on-the-ground progress remains elusive. Even a more recent specific initiative from 2023, the National Action for Mechanical Sanitation Ecosystem, NAMASTI, which was designed precisely to mechanize sanitation work, remove humans from these tasks. Well, the audit suggests it's showing minimal tangible impact on the ground so far.
The government commissioned this audit, publicized it, which is commendable in a way, bringing these uncomfortable truths out. But what needs to happen now?
Experts are clear. They must act decisively on these findings now, not just file the report. Stronger implementation of the existing laws is paramount. Targeted rehabilitation programs that genuinely offer alternative livelihoods, dignity, and escape from this cycle. Strict enforcement against employers, whether municipalities or private contractors who continue to illegally employ manual scavengers, and widespread community sensitization to tackle the deep-rooted social stigma associated with this work and the communities forced into it.
It goes beyond just laws, doesn't it?
Absolutely. Beyond legal measures, the issue demands a profound socio-economic transformation, one that actively dismantles the deeply ingrained caste-based labor hierarchies that perpetuate this horrific practice, and ensures genuine dignity, safety, and fair wages in all forms of sanitation work. It forces us to ask, how can these deep-seated social inequalities, often rooted in centuries of caste discrimination, be truly eradicated and transformed? Not just banned on paper, but genuinely addressed in practice for every single citizen.
Mayawati versus Rahul Gandhi caste politics in the spotlight.
Okay, our final headline brings us back to the intricate, often volatile world of Indian politics, specifically focusing on those enduring, deeply influential caste-based dynamics that constantly shape electoral strategies and alliances.
Always a crucial factor in Indian politics.
Absolutely. Bahujan Samaj Party, the BSP chief Mayawati, recently delivered a sharp criticism of Congress leader Rahul Gandhi. This came after his public apology for the Congress Party's historical shortcomings in supporting India's other backward classes, the OBCs.
Right. Gandhi had admitted, quite frankly, in what seemed like a contrite public statement, that Congress had historically failed to adequately work for the backward castes. He called it a mistake.
But Mayawati wasn't buying it.
No, she responded swiftly and very sharply, accused him of engaging in what she called selfish politics, characterized his statement as fundamentally insincere, purely politically motivated, designed to win back OBC votes rather than genuinely atone for past wrongs.
She really didn't pull any punches then. Saw it as cynical, opportunistic.
Not at all. She posted on X, formerly Twitter, arguing vehemently that Congress has consistently neglected the political, economic, and constitutional rights of OBCs throughout history, including, she said, proper and timely implementation of reservation benefits meant for them.
And she drew parallels with other groups.
Yes. She drew direct, damning comparisons to what she described as Congress's past indifference toward Dalits, formerly known as untouchables, and tribal communities. She suggested these historical patterns of neglect were precisely why her own party, the BSP, was formed in the first place as a party built explicitly on self-respect and empowerment for these historically marginalized groups who felt ignored by the mainstream parties.
So she's basically saying Congress only cares about caste issues now because they've lost ground electorally, especially in places like Uttar Pradesh where the BSP is strong.
Precisely. She accused Congress of opportunistically invoking caste concerns only after losing significant political relevance and electoral clout in key states like Uttar Pradesh, where caste arithmetic is incredibly influential, often decisive.
Calling the apology crocodile tears, I read.
Exactly that phrase, yeah. Implying a complete lack of genuine remorse, just a cynical political play to regain lost ground. And she didn't stop at Congress. She extended her condemnation to the ruling BJP-led NDA government as well, claiming it shows similar duplicity and opportunism in addressing the genuine needs of marginalized groups, essentially saying both major national parties are equally unreliable champions for these communities.
Did she give specific historical examples to back this up?
Yes, she did. She recalled specific instances from history from her perspective, where Congress allegedly denied caste-scheduled tribe reservation benefits, or where they failed, she claims, to honor Dr. B.R. Ambedkar, the revered Dalit icon and architect of India's constitution, with the Bharat Ratna, India's highest civilian award, during his lifetime. She also criticized delays in implementing OBC reservations after independence.
Her argument being?
Her argument is that these caste-driven parties, including both Congress and BJP in her view, have collectively weakened India's reservation system over decades, rendering it largely ineffective in truly uplifting backward communities and ensuring their equitable representation.
So how does she position her own party, the BSP, in contrast to all this?
Well, she positions the BSP as the only genuine, unwavering advocate for Bahujans, that's a broad term she uses, encompassing Dalits, tribals, OBCs, religious minorities, basically, the majority of India's population who aren't from the upper castes.
The sole champion.
That's the claim. She urged voters not to be misled by what she termed the empty promises of Congress, the Samajwadi Party, another major player in UP, or any other mainstream party, pointing to their historical records. She concluded by asserting that the security, dignity, and prosperity of these communities lies solely in the proving policies and governance legacy of the BSP, projecting her party as their only reliable hope for genuine social justice.
This whole exchange really throws a spotlight on the ongoing, deeply entrenched, caste-based political tensions in India, doesn't it? It's just a constant, powerful undercurrent.
It absolutely does. And from Mayawati's perspective, it's a strategic attempt to reinforce her party's relevance, maintain its distinct identity by sharply challenging both the Congress and the BJP narratives on social justice and empowerment. It makes you think about the sincerity and perhaps the effectiveness of political apologies, especially when they address these deeply embedded historical inequalities and power imbalances. Can they truly bridge the profound divides of the past, or are they inevitably viewed through the lens of contemporary political strategy? Outro.
Wow. Okay, what an incredibly insightful and pretty wide-ranging journey through today's headlines from India. We
Yeah,
really covered a lot of ground.
we certainly did.
From that cricket controversy sparking debates about sportsmanship and the spirit of the game, to those ancient archaeological discoveries down in Keeladi, they're, literally rewriting fundamental stories about India's deep, diverse history.
Yeah, and we delved into those complex ethical, legal questions around genetic data privacy in this age of direct consumer testing. We explored the unexpected trade barriers facing Indian liquor, even with a new free trade agreement. And we saw how historical tributes by the Prime Minister intricately intersect with modern political maneuvering and shaping national identity.
And we didn't stop there. We navigated the really challenging waters of international river treaties, that delicate balance between national rights and environmental needs in a changing climate. We examined that massive, meticulous process of cleaning up electoral rolls in Bihar, analyzed the high-stakes trade standoff over GM crops between India and the U.S., and pondered the somewhat precarious future of angel investing under these new, tighter regulations.
And finally, yeah, we heard those sharp exchanges in the political arena about historical support for marginalized communities, exposing those deep-seated caste dynamics that continue to shape Indian politics and social justice efforts day in, day out. Each of these stories, they might seem distinct, but together they offer this crucial, really revealing glimpse into the diverse challenges, the remarkable opportunities, and the persistent complexities facing India right now, as it navigates its present and constantly shapes its future on the world stage.
You came here looking for a shortcut to being genuinely well-informed, and we really hope this deep dive has given you much more than just a quick summary. Hopefully you now have the crucial context, the nuanced understanding, maybe some surprising facts, to truly grasp these pivotal moments as they unfold.
And as we wrap up, maybe here's something to mull over. In a nation as vast, as ancient, and as vibrantly diverse as India, where these ancient legacies constantly meet cutting-edge challenges, where global aspirations often clash with deeply rooted domestic realities, how do all these seemingly disparate daily events, the ones we talked about today, how do they collectively weave together? How do they shape the ongoing narrative of a country that's constantly striving to balance tradition, progress, and that ever-elusive pursuit of true social justice for all its billion-plus citizens?
What stands out to you about India's daily pulse from what we discussed? We definitely encourage you to keep exploring, keep questioning, keep digging deeper into the stories that truly matter. Thank you so much for diving deep with us today.